Well, hello there, you're watching the press preview. A first look then at what is on the front pages. It's time to see then what's making the headlines with the politics editor for the online magazine Gal-Dem Moya Lothian-Mclean and the Sun's political editor Harry Cole, who will be with us right through until midnight. So, front pages then, let's check those out. We start with the Metro. Their headline, pinging the changes, reacting to tweaks being made to the NHS COVID app with the aim of forcing fewer people to self-isolate. On that same story, the Daily Mail declares pings can only get better. According to The Guardian, the Prime Minister has shelved plans for a so-called amber watch list for travel. The Director General of the Joint Biosecurity Centre, who would have been pivotal in giving advice on the matter, has left the post and is yet to be replaced. The Telegraph describes Boris Johnson's intervention as saving holidays on the continent. The Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, has told young people that working from home could harm their careers. That is according to The Times. The Sun speaks to Sasha Atwood, the girlfriend of England footballer Jack Grealish, who says she's received death threats every day on social media since his appearance in the European Championships. The Financial Times has a story concerning the possible takeover of the aerospace and defence company Meggitt. And The Star has a moose flash as they report on a herd of dairy cows fitted with pedometers to prove they are happy moving around. Where do they find these stories? Who knows? Anyway, Harry and Moya are here with their thoughts. Great to have you here. First of all, then, Moya, let's talk about holidays. This idea of an amber watch list, which went down really badly with the travel industry, with some Tory MPs, and indeed, it seems, the Chancellor.
Yes, so if we take a look at the front page of the Telegraph in particular, we're looking at this amber watch list, which has been scrapped. So the newspapers yesterday were all abuzz with how unpopular the amber watch list is. And surprise, surprise, about 24 hours later, there's been a U-turn and Boris Johnson has decided the amber watch list is no longer coming into play. Of course, the travel industry are going to be celebrating this wildly. What's interesting is there's a couple of conflicting views over who's been responsible for this U-turn. If you look at the Telegraph headline, it's PM steps in to save holidays on the continent. But if you read reports elsewhere, it suggests that actually it had more to do with Grant Shapps, the Transport Minister, and Rishi Sunak, who were bitterly opposed to the plan. But now they've decided they want to keep travel as simple as possible, and they think that will allow millions more people to go away this summer, as opposed to having this complex system. I mean, the amber watch list, who even knows what exactly that means? I mean, how long do you have to quarantine? How long are you? What happens when it changes? So I think this is going to clear things up a lot for prospective travellers.
Yeah, I guess the fear was you'd go straight to red and straight to an expensive hotel outside whichever airport you're coming to, at great cost to people, obviously. Telegraph pointing out that there had been suggestions that Spain, Greece and France, which currently has its own lovely category, were also to be added to that watch list. Harry, what's your view? What brought about this turnabout, do you think?
I don't think it can quite be a U-turn if it was never quite announced, but it definitely has been a bit of a mess for the last sort of 5 days, really. This one's been bubbling over, and there's definitely a sort of internal lobbying going on. It feels to me that that the Department of Health, for sure, and some elements of the Department of Transport definitely wanted to shift the buck a little bit, because should they have to move the country very quickly outside of the sort of 3-week review process onto the red list, you can see the ministers sort of not really wanting to get the blame for that, because there'll be a huge backlash, as you say, if you force people into hotel quarantine rather than have to quarantine at home at a moment's notice. I want to kind of think, how relaxing can a holiday be at all if you're on any of these amber lists where you've presumably got to have a bag ready to go at a moment's notice to get home should you have to. So there's this almighty sort of swings and roundabouts going on in Whitehall of whether to do this or not. I think they did sort of pull stumps on it this morning and think, actually, we've got a traffic light system. Traffic lights are quite easy to explain. Are we really going to end up in what I think one poor junior minister who was sent out this morning described as a rainbow spectrum of risk? So you can see them slightly trying to just simplify things, get back to where they were. But in the middle of August, when there's not very much for us to write about, it does just look a little bit dithery.
Yes, and I suppose some people might say, given it is August and this is peak holiday season, why not review every week and let everyone know what they're doing, not these great long hiatuses between decisions? The Guardian, slightly different take. Obviously, Johnson ditches travel watch list plan amid chaos at the advisory body, suggesting that the head of it has gone and has not yet been replaced. Who knows? I mean, I know Labour have been calling for the data on which these decisions are being made to be published, so we have a bit more transparency here. We also saw the boss of Heathrow today too saying ditch the PCR tests in favour of lateral flow tests, which you can carry out yourself. But I guess the whole point is you're trying to monitor the variants coming into the country, which is done via the PCR test, isn't it? So, you know, this is the dilemma for government, isn't it, Moya?
Yes, I mean, ditching the lateral flow test, I think, would be a big mistake, given that most of our lateral flow tests are made by Innova, a company who have been in the US, it's been advised that you bin the lateral flow tests made by them there because they're so unreliable. So I don't think it would help the spread of COVID at all if we ditch lateral flow tests. It's just interesting because you look at this news in The Guardian where it says that Claire Gardner, who was head of the Joint Biosecurity Centre, left in June. As you pointed out, it's now August. So that position has either been vacated or someone in the interim, and we have no idea who it is. There's very little transparency around this data, the decisions, who's advising on this, whether anyone's advising at all. The Guardian suggests that the security centre is now rudderless. So it just seemed just a bit chaotic, the way this entire pandemic has gone. That has been the overwhelming theme, chaos, and it doesn't look like it's changing anytime soon, sadly.
Yes, celebratory tone in the Daily Mail. Harry, ping, Amber travel watch list U-turn. Ping, climb down as NHS app tweaked. And ping, COVID cases lowest for a month. First of all, is there some optimism that the lowering of cases is a genuine drop now after suggestions possibly it's because schools are not testing? And also this NHS app even tweak. Was that inevitable, do you think?
No, it wasn't actually. And 10 days ago, they were saying absolutely not. However, you've got to see everything in the context now of these plummeting COVID rates. 21,000 cases reported yesterday. That is, you know, nowhere near the 60,000 we were seeing 2 or 3 weeks ago, and nowhere near the 200,000 cases a day that were being predicted by some of the more doomsaying medics who sometimes grace these airwaves. So I think you've got to look at everything through this prism now of it is clear that the graph is going the right way. It's not, you know, we've been every Monday we come on here and talk about this, you know, what could it be that's driving this? The number of tests was down slightly, yes, once the schools broke up, but the number of negatives is the rate. Sorry, the cases have fallen. It's far greater proportion than the tests were down. So that one can be parked. Was it a sort of phasing out of the sort of artificial football bounce? Were cases worse because we're all in pubs and houses watching football? Possibly. That was a worry, but again, the graph is going in the right direction. It has been going in the right direction, you know, on average, almost consistently now for 2 weeks. So this is obviously filling people with optimism, least of all in government. So things that did look a bit bleak, like the idea of slightly desensitizing the app to stop it, you know, so it's now instead of tracing contacts you've been in touch with for 5 days, it actually goes down to 2 days. It's what NHS Test and Trace, the sort of physical people tracking body, actually ask you for who you've seen the last 48 hours. So it just sort of slightly bringing it in line to that. Some might say, hang on, why wasn't it in line with that all along? But that's a debate, I think, probably for another day. But yeah, look, there is a feeling that there is a bit more movement now and things can be done because our case rates are crucially falling, and long may it continue. Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? The distinction with the test and trace by phone. The Metro also going on this, Moya, as well, pinging the changes. And really, this was all about confidence because presumably they have figures to show how many people are deleting the app in order to carry on functioning, whether it's their business needs them or whatever. So you've got to keep the confidence in the system, haven't you?
Yeah, I mean, it says in the Metro around 40% of adults use it in the UK, and I'd be interested to see how that figure might have changed over the last few weeks, given the amount of reports about the pingdemic. I think there was a YouGov poll yesterday which found that 10% of people polled had deleted the app. But I also think what's interesting is that they tweaked this app to reduce the amount of days that it takes in order to get you pinged in the first place. But they haven't actually done anything like up the sick pay, which has been called for by people for ages. And so there's 2 million workers who exist in gig economy work and precarious work in the UK who still aren't eligible for sick pay at all because they earn under 120 a week. But these are the people who are most likely to be, working in industries where they're having close contact with other people, like delivery industries, for example. So it would make more sense if they were taking this two-pronged approach to me. And I do think it is a sticking point that things like sick pay have not been used as an incentive while they're making these tweaks to the app on the other side.
Yes, and long been called for by many, to be fair. Just a bit of crystal ball gazing, Harry, to finish off this section. What happens now? We talk about summer holidays, then we roll into September, talk about a booster, certainly now for over 50s. What are the prospects? What are the plans?
Well, I think what this summer inadvertently, I don't think it, some people on, in the darker realms of the internet will suggest it's all been some big experiment. But I think what this summer has shown is the great news in the fact that the vaccine has severely limited the connection between deaths and cases. Cases were nearly as high as, at one point as in this sort of second January wave, yet the deaths never have not and do not seem to be getting anywhere near, deaths and hospitalizations, I should add, getting anywhere near the level of the winter, of last Christmas and the earlier this year. So I think what we'll see in September is obviously when the schools go back and when the universities go back, there is an expectation that case levels will go back up. But it's whether that as the summer months pass and as it gets colder, it gets darker and it gets wetter, and we get naturally into sort of cold and coughs and flu season, whether that hospitalisation level can be kept down as well, and whether those deaths can be kept down. Now, as you say, they'll be doing everything they can to roll out booster jabs, possibly giving flu jabs and COVID third jabs to people at the same time. Big desperate drive to get students vaccinated, fill that gap between the under 30s, who there's still 3 million of them, or 2.8 million, I think it is now, who haven't been jabbed. So we'll see all sorts of funky things, like we saw over the weekend about Uber and Deliveroo and people like that, encouraging voucher schemes to get jabbed. And then I think we'll have a big old row about vaccine passports and whether they're really needed, because actually, if cases keep going in the same direction, do we really need to be, sort of messing with our civil liberties on such a scale? And will people put up for it with that in the same way they might do if we were in the middle of a pandemic? At the height of a pandemic, they might be more willing to sort of, to play ball with the government on paperwork for jabs. Whereas if the case rates and the data rates are very low, then I think you'll see people go, no thanks.
Yeah, interesting. I thought the big debate would be about whether kebabs are a big enough incentive, to be fair, but not. It's going to be about vaccine passports. Well, welcome back. You're watching the press preview. With me now, Moya Lothian-Mclean and Harry Cole. Welcome back to both of you. Harry, to the FT we go now. The Olympics, with a curveball, really. This Belarusian runner, desperate not to go home.
Yeah, obviously, as we were just saying, it feels a little bit something like out the Cold War. This is a sort of, you remember the stories of the great, sort of Olympic defectors who, slipped over the Iron Curtain using the sport event to escape persecution. Now, this is an even weird one. It's not even that she's been particularly political in speaking out against the regime. In fact, she merely criticised her coach for trying to make her do an event that wasn't even what she'd trained for, and she wrote on Instagram that she wasn't happy with that, and all hell breaks loose. It doesn't help that the last dictator in Europe, as they call him, son, is in charge of the Olympic Committee, which has, again, residents of the old Soviet era and how that was run. But no, an astonishing tale, and just, the Olympic Committee obviously very heavily monitoring that, and good news in the fact that she's currently appears safe and in hiding.
Yeah, a fascinating tale. So too, front page of The Sun, Moya, and this is the girlfriend of one of the English stars who's receiving death threats, she says.
Yeah, so Sasha Atwood, she's been talking on her YouTube channel. She's the girlfriend of Jack Grealish. They have quite a low-key relationship, but people who know, and Grealish became quite the heartthrob during the Euros. And unfortunately, it's meant that Sasha's been the subject of online abuse. And she says it's mostly by young teenage girls, which is really sad. And what it all comes back to, again and again, is social media and how abuse is sent on social media and the fact it's not monitored or regulated. And it's so easy to just like send this. We saw it with the, Marcus Rashford and Jadon Sancho and Bukayo Saka after the Euros as well. And it's that same thing again. Social media does allow an ease of abusing these high-profile people, and something has to be done. It's just the question of what.
Yeah, exactly. Don't we all know it in some respects, I guess. Moya, Harry, thank you so much. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.